Late April 1943. Near Tunis. Tunisia, North African theatre. The olive grove did not look like a battlefield. Even after months of shelling, strafing runs, and desperate armoured thrusts from both sides, the trees still stood in crooked rows across the ochre soil, their gnarled trunks older than any map of this place. Sunlight slipped between the branches, throwing long patterns across the ground like the bars of a cage. It was quiet. Too quiet for a region that had echoed with tank engines and machine gun rattles for weeks. Sergeant Daniel Mack McAllister sat on the glacis plate of his M4A1 Sherman, helmet tilted back, chewing a piece of gum gone flavorless hours ago. He'd tasted sand ever since he stepped off the transport at Oran months back, but today the air carried something different oil. Thick, burned, metallic. Not from their own machine. Something else. Something bigger. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Engine still runs smooth. Private Harris called down from the turret, knuckles black with grease. But we're low on water. Again. Mack chuckled. Desert hospitality. Drink the last of it. The paperwork will say we rationed perfectly. Harris grinned. The kid was 18 but looked younger, all skinny elbows and dust-caked freckles. He had the kind of optimism only the inexperienced or the reckless carried into war. Corporal Ruiz, their gunner, leaned out the other side of the turret, scanning the olive grove with a pair of binoculars. So says enemy armour pulled back toward the hills last night, but Recon wants us moving slowly. Something big was spotted here yesterday. Mack raised an eyebrow. Big how? Ruiz shrugged. Bigger than a Panzer card. That narrowed the list. And not in a comforting direction. Before Mack could press, Lieutenant Boucher arrived, weaving through the trees from Operations HQ. He was a young officer, too young, some said, but he carried himself with the stiff assurance of someone who learned doctrine from books and hoped the enemy had read the same ones. He stopped in the shade beside the Sherman, sweat dripping from his jawline. We're linking with Baker Company's recon squad. Something's out there. Something German. Something we've never seen before. Mack stood. His jaw tightened. Sir, what exactly are we looking for? Butcher hesitated just for a moment. Intelligence intercepted chatter from retreating units. They're abandoning equipment to prevent capture. Something heavy, possibly experimental. We're to secure it before the Panzers return. Experimental, Harris muttered. That never means good things. The lieutenant didn't correct him. The column moved slowly through the grove, 2 Shermans, a half-track with 10 exhausted infantrymen clinging to its sides, and a recon jeep carrying 2 radio operators and a single antenna wobbling like a fishing pole. Dust hung behind them in pale clouds. The grove stretched for miles rolling terrain, sun-baked, dotted with low stone walls and irrigation trenches long since dried up. It would have been beautiful in peacetime, but Mack kept glancing at the horizon, where the desert shimmered in waves of heat. Oil, Rees said. Thick, like a blown engine, but not one of ours. Mack felt it too, a faint vibration in the ground, not from their own treads. Something massive must have passed through here recently. The radio crackled. Recon ahead had stopped. Mack's throat tightened. The lead jeep had pulled beside a low stone wall and stopped dead. The corporal riding the fender pointed across the grove. At first Mack saw nothing. Then he saw it. A wide track of crushed earth, deeper than anything a Sherman could leave. Branch snapped clean, not torn. Trees uprooted. And in the centre of the grove, half hidden by foliage, silhouette of a vehicle hulking, angular, and unmistakably foreign. The infantry spread out, rifles raised, taking cover behind trees and stones. Boucher raised his binoculars, then slowly lowered them, his face pale. "Holy hell," he whispered. "That's a tiger. A tiger eye." They exchanged confused looks. But Mack knew the rumours. Every tanker did. The tiger was the German monster that had crushed Soviet armour at Leningrad, a tank so heavily armoured that Shermans bounced off it like pebbles. A gun so powerful that it could kill from over a mile. There were only whispers about it in North Africa. No one believed the Germans would waste such a machine here. But there it sat, almost intact, and alone. "Driver," Boucher said, voice tight, "advance slowly." The Shermans crept forward, turrets locked on the massive silhouette. As they drew closer, the scale of it became clear. The tiger was enormous, its turret boxy and brutal, armour plates thick enough to laugh off a high-explosive shell. The 4.28 mm cannon, long and straight, pointed uselessly into the dirt. Its tracks were half buried in churned soil. Something had disabled it, but not much. The hull was dented and scuffed, but not destroyed. A long gouge along the side marked where an anti-tank round had struck and failed to penetrate. Mack stared up at it in disbelief. This was worth more than any supply depot, any fuel dump, any captured officer. This was an intelligence prize that could change the war. "Mount up and cover me," Boucher said, climbing down from the Sherman. The lieutenant approached the tiger cautiously, stepping over a broken track link. The turret hatch was open. Smoke residue ringed the edges. Inside, something smelled burned and not just machinery. Mack's pulse hammered. A German crew wouldn't abandon this unless they had no choice. The lieutenant peered inside, then recoiled. "Dead crew," he said. "2 burned. 1 shot." Ruiz muttered. "Friendly fire?" "Doesn't matter," Mack said. "Tiger's ours now." But the lieutenant wasn't smiling. He scanned the grove, nervous. "Not ours. Sergeant. We're in hostile territory. Whoever left this might still be nearby, and if the Germans realize we have it—" He didn't finish the sentence. The recon team moved quickly, fanning out to secure the perimeter. The infantry checked bodies, some German, some Italian scatterings from a skirmish that must have erupted during the night. Harris climbed onto the tiger's hull like a kid approaching a carnival exhibit. "This thing's a beast," he breathed. "Look at the thickness of this front plate. We'd need a whole battalion of Shermans to crack it. Or one bold soul with a wrench." Ruiz smirked. "Might learn something." "Negative," Boucher cut in sharply. "No one enters until ordnance clears it. Could be booby-trapped." That sobered the men quickly. Explosives teams arrived 20 minutes later, 2 men, both British, both looking far too calm for their line of work. They inspected the tiger meticulously, checking hatches, wiring, ammunition racks. At last one of them waved. "All clear, no traps." Boucher exhaled. "Right. Mack, Ruiz, take notes. Document everything. We'll need to report this capture in full detail. Command will want it on a boat to England by sunset." Mack climbed up onto the tiger's turret, running his hand over the armour. The steel was cool in the shade, unmarred except for scratches and bullet marks. Up close, it was even more intimidating. This machine wasn't just a tank. It was a fortress with treads. Ruiz slipped inside the turret, flashlight in hand. Gun breech is intact, optics too. He tapped the breech block. "And it's huge. This thing could punch through us before we even saw it." Mack swung down into the hull, landing beside the driver's seat. The controls looked German. Tight, precise, engineered like a clock. He leaned closer. Then he froze. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." Ruiz poked his head down. "What?" Mack pointed at the fuel gauge. Ruiz laughed. "No wonder they abandoned it." The Tiger, this mechanical titan, this battlefield terror, this indestructible beast had run out of gas. "Sir," Mack called. "We found the reason they left it." Boucher climbed up. "Damage?" "No damage," Mack said. "Fuel. They ran her dry." Boucher blinked. "You're telling me this thing burns through an entire tank of fuel after what, one day in the field?" "Sir," Mack said, "based on the gauge, I don't think it even got 120 miles." A tank feared across continents, capable of killing anything that moved, armoured like a fortress, and it couldn't cross Tunisia without drinking the entire German fuel reserve. "Hell of a flaw," Ruiz muttered. "Hell of an opportunity," Boucher corrected. But even as they documented the interior, the wind shifted. A sudden gust swept through the grove, carrying distant engine noise, faint, low. Approaching. German engines. Mack stiffened. "Sir, sounds like armour." Boucher didn't hesitate. "Recon. Form a perimeter. Sherman's defensive formation. No one fires unless fired upon, but no one lets the Tigers be reclaimed." The men scrambled, rifles raised, tank engines roaring to life. Mack climbed onto the Sherman, heart pounding. He took one last look at the Tiger, silent, majestic, terrifying, its massive gun pointed uselessly at the ground. They had captured a legend. Now they had to survive long enough to keep it. The first sound was faint, just a murmur on the wind. But in the olive grove, where every leaf trembled under the noon sun, Mack heard it clearly. Engines. Multiple. Heavy. "Everyone stay sharp." Lieutenant Boucher shouted, his voice ricocheting across the grove. "Infantry, defensive positions. Tanks hull down behind the ridge." The American troops sprang into motion. The half-track manoeuvred behind a stone wall, while the infantry spread out, digging in behind trees and low berms. Mack climbed into the commander's hatch of his Sherman, tightening the chin strap of his helmet. "Driver, warm her up. Ruiz, get the gun ready AP in the tube." Ruiz snapped open the breech. Already done. The Sherman's engine carved, then roared to life, vibrating through the olive trunks. Dust spiraled upward in sunlit ribbons. Across the grove, the captured Tiger loomed like a stranded giant, silent and immovable. A dead beast. But still dangerous, if only because of the attention it was sure to draw. The recon jeep raced back toward the grove, its driver waving frantically. "Panzers!" he yelled. 2, maybe 3 coming down the ridge." Boucher swore softly. Tiger back. Mack steadied his binoculars. The ridge, shimmering in the afternoon heat, showed movement dark silhouettes cresting the hill. One, then another, and then a third. Panzer Corps, the workhorse of the Afrika Korps. But they were advancing cautiously, turret guns searching. "They know it's here," Ruiz muttered. Either the Tiger radioed before it died, or their retreat wasn't much of a retreat. "They're probing," Mack said, "trying to see who's got possession. And if we're not careful," Harris added, "they're going to take it right back." The Shermans were outnumbered, outgunned, and the Tiger, their priceless trophy, sat motionless and useless in the center of the grove, without a drop of fuel. If the Germans pushed hard, the Americans would be forced to withdraw, and the Tiger would fall back into enemy hands, unless they held the line. Sherman 1, reposition behind that embankment, Boucher ordered. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Sherman 2 cover the Tiger. Do not let a Panzer approach within 200 yards. Copy that, Mack responded. His Sherman rumbled across the grove, kicking up dust and crushing fallen branches. They stopped behind a low ridge, a natural hull-down position. Only the turret and the gun would show. Ruiz aligned the 75 mm gun. Got eyes on them. 2 are angled left, 1 swinging right. Mack kept his voice steady. Hold. No shots yet. Think they know how dry their Tiger is? Harris whispered. Doesn't matter, Ruiz said. Even if they think it's dead, they know intel value when they see it. And if they take it back, everything we learned goes with them. The German formation stopped at the ridge, their silhouettes still. A long moment stretched across the sand, heavy as armor plate. Then the lead Panzer fired. A shell shrieked through the air, slamming into the grove. Panzer, Harris said. They want us gone. Mack exhaled. Gunner target the lead Panzer. Range? 800 yards, Ruiz replied. A-round loaded. Send it. Ruiz fired. The Sherman rocked back, dust jumping off the hull. The round screamed across the grove and struck the Panzer's turret. Sparks, smoke, but no penetration. Damn, Ruiz muttered, glanced off. They know our range now, Mack warned. Second tanks preparing to fire. The second Panzer's gun flashed. Another shell thundered overhead, smashing into the far side of the grove and kicking up a cloud of dirt. If they get a good angle. They won't, Mack cut in. Driver, pivot and degrees left. The Sherman shifted, treads crunching over stone. The turret adjusted automatically. Ruiz fired again. This time the round struck the Panzer's hull front. Again, no penetration, but the blast stunned. The tank long enough for the 3rd Panzer to move forward, trying to flank them. They're spreading out, Boucher radioed. They want to encircle the Tiger. No way in hell, Mack muttered, but the Germans were fast, faster than expected. The rightmost Panzer was angling toward the grove's far edge, where the Americans had thinner cover. They're trying to get behind the Tiger, Harris said. If they do, then they'll blast us all out of here, Mack finished. Lieutenant Boucher sprinted toward the captured Tiger, ducking behind its massive hull. McAllister, new plan. Sir, Mack called. We're using the Tiger as cover. Mack blinked. It's immobile, sir. We can't maneuver around. No, Boucher said. We're going inside it. Ruiz's head whipped around. Into the Tiger? Sir, we don't know if it still has ammunition. Boucher nodded. It does. The ordnance techs found at least 8 armor-piercing rounds in the racks. But no fuel, Mack reminded him. We don't need fuel, Boucher said sharply. Not to turn the turret. Silence hung for a heartbeat. Then Harris whispered, Holy hell, we're going to fire a German gun. Boucher's eyes were deadly serious. If the Germans want their tank back, they'll have to take it from Americans firing the Catwing Tweet at them. The Catwing Tweet Millimet Cup 26, the most feared tank gun in the world. Mack felt his pulse jump. It was insane, dangerous, half-suicidal, and possibly brilliant. Mack made the decision fast. Ruiz, Harris, get out. We're moving into the Tiger. Driver, keep our Sherman here as a decoy. The 3 men sprinted across the grove toward the enormous captured tank. A burst of German MG fire stitched the dirt nearby, forcing them to drop behind a fallen tree. Move! Mack shouted. They dashed again, diving behind the Tiger's right track. Boucher opened the turret hatch. Inside! Quickly! Mack climbed up first, then dropped into the turret compartment. The air inside was thick with the sour smell of burned oil and cordite. The bodies had been removed, but the memory of the fight lingered like smoke. Ruiz jumped down next, scanning the cramped interior with awe. Holy. This thing is a cathedral compared to the Sherman. Less worship, more work, Mack said. Load that 4.28. Ruiz slid an AP round massive and gleaming into the breech. The shell alone weighed nearly 20 kilograms. Harris took the radio operator's seat, adjusting unfamiliar German knobs. I'll try to link us to our net. No guarantees. Boucher took the commander's position, eyes pressed against the periscope. Mack, get on the gun. Ruiz, assist. Mack's heart pounded. The Tiger's gun controls were smooth, smoother than any American tank he'd operated. The Traverse was electric, fast and precise. And the optics, damn, he whispered. I can see their entire flank. Ruiz muttered. No wonder the Russians hate these things. Outside, the nearest Panzer fort advanced, unaware that its former king was now manned by Americans. Target at 700 yards. Boucher said calmly. Angle 28, elevation 2 degrees high, steady. Fire when ready. Mack exhaled, feeling the weight of history in his hands. Firing. The 4.28 roared. The entire Tiger shook with the recoil, a deep, metallic shudder that felt like standing inside a thunderclap. Smoke vented through the turret. Harris coughed. Through the commander's optics, Boucher watched the AP round streak across the grove. It slammed into the Panzer 40 square in the turret ring, a blinding flash. Then a fireball erupted from its hull, armor plates bursting outward like shrapnel. The German tank burned hot and fast, a black column of smoke spiraling into the desert sky. Inside the firsted Tiger, the Americans stared in awe. Holy, Ruiz whispered. That was one shot. Load another, Mack ordered. But the German tanks were already reacting. The remaining 2 Panzer IVs swung their turrets toward the Tiger, now realizing the dead beast had come alive again. We're not in cover, Harris warned. Their 75mm guns can hit us clean. Mack grabbed the Traverse controls. Second target 600 yards, angle right. Mack slewed the turret. On it. The second Panzer fired first. The shell hit the Tiger's turret with a deafening clang, rocking the entire tank. Harris yelped. They hit us. But there was no penetration, only a molten smear on the thick front armor. Mack grinned despite himself. Tiger armor, boys. Fire, Boucher ordered. Mack fired. Another cataclysmic blast. The second Panzer's hull detonated. Flames shot from every hatch. The turret blew off completely, tumbling into the grove like a kicked can. 2 down. 1 left, Ruiz said, loading a third shell. And he's backing off, Harris reported. He's retreating. No, Boucher said grimly. He's repositioning. The third Panzer was pulling behind a ridge, trying to get a shot at the Tiger's weaker side armor. He'll flank us, Mack warned. Unless we get him first, Boucher said. Mack traversed the turret, but the Panzer disappeared behind rock and brush. I lost visual. Hold, Boucher said softly, peering through the optics. He'll appear on the far right in 3, 2, 1. There. The Panzer re-emerged, turret already turning toward them. Fire! Boucher shouted. Mack squeezed the trigger. The 4.28 roared again. The top hatches. Silence. The grove seemed to exhale. 3 German tanks destroyed in minutes, from inside their own stolen Tiger. The American infantry erupted in cheers. Some pounded on the Tiger's hull. Others stared at the wreckage in disbelief. Harris leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. We just used a German tank to kill 3 German tanks. Ruiz laughed. Does this mean we're honorary panzer aces? Bucher exhaled, his shoulders slumping. We're alive, gentlemen. That's enough. But the celebration was short-lived. A new voice crackled on the radio, American HQ. Lieutenant Bucher, we have orders. Secure that tiger. Reinforcements are en route. You are to hold position at all costs. Bucher's expression darkened. Yes, Lieutenant. Intelligence wants that tiger, shipped to England within the week. The Germans won't let it go easily. Mack swallowed. The battle was over. But the war for the tiger had just begun. The morning fog hovered low over the olive grove, winding through shattered trees and scorched earth. Smoke from the previous day's firefight still clung to the leaves, a grey haze that smelled of burnt oil and cordite. For Mack, the haze carried more than just the scent of battle, it carried the weight of what they had done. 3 German tanks destroyed. Inside their own captured tiger, and now the grove was eerily silent, as if the olive trees themselves were holding their breath. Mack clambered out of the tiger's turret, muscles stiff from the recoil and tension. Harris followed, muttering under his breath. If someone had told me yesterday we'd be using a tiger against panzers, I'd have laughed in their face. Ruiz shook his head, brushing ash from his sleeves. Lorving's gone now. Only nightmares. Bucher appeared from behind the tiger's hull, his notebook in hand, scribbling down observations of the battle. We can't linger, he said. Recon reports indicate German patrols in the area, and we still have the biggest problem, the tiger itself. Mack frowned. Sir, you mean the Germans? Bucher shook his head. No, I mean the Americans. HQ wants this tank intact. Intelligence sees it as a gold mine, and we're the ones who have to deliver it. Ruiz groaned. Intact? After what we did yesterday? It's smoking like a chimney and missing a turret ring. Nothing's perfect, Bucher replied dryly. But we're expected to get it out of here before German forces realize what we've done. Harris leaned on the hull, scanning the grove. I still can't get over the looks on those Panzer crews' faces. Yes, that's one of the lessons of war. Fear travels faster than steel. And today, we wielded it. By noon, the Americans had established a temporary perimeter around the tiger. Infantry squads moved cautiously, clearing rubble and checking for mines. Mack and Ruiz stayed close to the tank, preparing it for the long, slow journey to the collection point. Engines dead, Mack said, inspecting the massive power plant. We'll need a tow. Ruiz whistled. Never thought I'd hear myself say this, but I'm actually looking forward to a Sherman pulling this beast. Harris laughed, shaking his head. It's going to be like dragging a Cathrall on treads. Bucher consulted a map, tracing the route to the forward airstrip, where engineers would arrive to secure the tiger. The Germans may still have armour in the area. Avoid main roads. Stick to the woods as much as possible. It'll slow us down, but it'll keep us alive. Any word from HQ on how to tow this thing? Mack asked. They're sending a modified montrainte et un recovery vehicle, Bucher said. Should be here by dusk. Until then... The Americans took advantage of the lull to inspect their battlefield trophies, burned-out German tanks scattered across the terrain. Each was a grim reminder of how deadly the war had become, how fragile life was inside these metal behemoths. Ruiz knelt by a destroyed panzer, picking up a mangled steel fragment. You know, he said softly, I used to think the tiger was untouchable. Watching it burn yesterday, it didn't just die, it humiliated its own. Harris frowned. Careful. The last thing we need is a philosophical debate while the Germans are still out there. Bucher overheard but didn't respond, his eyes scanning the grove, his mind working. "What we learned yesterday goes beyond this grove," he said quietly. "Tactical innovation, psychological warfare. Fear is the weapon we wielded as much as any Katving toot." Mack nodded slowly. "And that tiger, it wasn't ours, but it sure fought like it was." Ruiz grinned. Shadows lengthened across the grove, intertwining with smoke and broken limbs. From the ridge, a distant rumble shook the earth. Not a Sherman, not the tiger, something heavier. Butcher squinted. "Enemy armor," he muttered. "Could be remnants from the previous day. Could be a recon patrol." Mack adjusted his binoculars. "2 tanks. No, 3. They're moving fast, coming from the northeast." "They've got the ridge advantage," Ruiz said. "If they spot the tiger, we're screwed." Butcher didn't reply immediately. Instead, he studied the terrain, calculating angles and distances. "We're not leaving the tiger behind," he said finally. "We can't. Orders are explicit. We move at night, and we move smart." Mack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Night movements were dangerous, under the best circumstances. With this hulking machine, it was almost suicidal. Harris looked between them. "And we tow it with what? A Sherman?" "Yes," Butcher said. "And skill. And luck. Both of which we'll need in spades." Night fell. The Americans gathered supplies and prepared for the trek. The grove was dark now, shadows twisting under the moonlight. The tiger, enormous and silent, loomed ahead. Mack could feel the weight of the machine not just physically, but psychologically. Every creak of metal, every groan of the treads, echoed like a ghost in the silence. The M4A1 recovery vehicle arrived, its headlights slicing through the fog. Engineers jumped out, checking chains, pulleys, and structural integrity. Butcher briefed the crew quickly, emphasizing stealth and efficiency. "We move in 5, he said. Mack climbed into the Sherman, acting as lead 2 vehicle, engine idling low. Ruiz and Harris joined him, each carrying extra ammunition in case of surprise. Engagement. The Tiger's turret, surprisingly operable despite yesterday's battle, was carefully secured to prevent swinging during the journey. Chains rattled. Sparks flew as connections were tightened. The enormous Tiger, once the symbol of German invincibility, now depended entirely on American improvisation. The convoy began to move slowly, treads crunching over stone and dirt. Mack drove cautiously, keeping the Sherman low and the Tiger following precisely. Harris monitored the flank while Ruiz communicated with engineers via hand signals. The grove seemed endless. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig sent hearts racing. Mack could feel the German ghosts of yesterday hovering, watching, judging. But nothing appeared. The grove held its secrets for now. Hours passed. The Tiger was halfway to the extraction point. The American squad had gained rhythm. One by one, the shadows of destroyed trees and distant hills became familiar markers. Then, the faintest sound, a metallic scrape. Mack froze. "Did you hear that?" Harris nodded. "Something's behind us." Butcher climbed onto the Sherman's turret, peering into the darkness. German patrol, likely infantry with a few armoured scouts, could be recon or stragglers. "We can't outrun tanks in this terrain," Butcher thought fast. "We're not outrunning them. We're using what we've got." Mack, swing the Tiger slightly left. Make it appear disabled. Mack adjusted, following Butcher's directions. The Tiger lurched slightly, chains groaning. Harris threw smoke grenades to obscure movement, creating the illusion of mechanical failure. From the shadows, The patrol approached, rifles at the ready. Soldiers whispered, debating the best approach. The tiger loomed before them, silent and immobile, a tempting prize. They moved cautiously, unsure if it was trapped or still operable. Boucher tapped Mack's shoulder. "Wait for my signal. Don't engage unless we have to." Seconds stretched. The patrol edged closer. "Now," Boucher hissed. Mack hit the tiger's ignition. Sparks. The turret rotated slightly, aiming directly at the lead German soldier. The patrol froze. A single, massive shadow staring at them. Mack grinned. "Let's see if fear travels faster than steel." Boucher gave a subtle nod. Ruiz triggered the loudspeaker inside the tiger, letting out a mechanical growl, something unidentifiable, almost like a lion in the night. Harris counted down. The patrol hesitated, whispering and retreating. Fear, just as Boucher predicted, worked better than fire. The convoy resumed movement, the Germans fading behind them. Every tense second carried the weight of the tiger's history. The terror it had once inspired, now weaponized by American hands. By dawn, the extraction point appeared. Engineers and American troops moved swiftly to secure the tiger, preparing it for transport to England. Mack, Ruiz, and Harris climbed out, exhausted but exhilarated. They had done it. They had captured, operated, and delivered the ultimate prize without losing a single man. Boucher studied the tiger one last time. Proof that ingenuity, courage, and a bit of psychological warfare can turn the tables on even the deadliest enemy. Mack nodded, staring at the massive hull. And proof, he added quietly, that sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted. "I just hope they don't try to build another one faster than we can ship this one home." Harris chuckled, shaking his head. "Let them try. We've got the originals." The tiger sat in silence, waiting to be dissected, studied, and displayed. But for Mack, Boucher, Ruiz, and Harris, it was also a reminder of everything the war demanded: courage, quick thinking, and the willingness to stare into the teeth of fear itself and emerge, victorious. As the sun rose over the olive grove, the first rays glinting off the tiger's steel, the Americans watched. The war still raged, still demanded sacrifice, still promised danger. But here, in this grove, they had captured a legend, turned it into a weapon, and survived to tell the tale. And somewhere deep inside, Mack knew the story of that day, the roar of the 428, the fear in the eyes of their enemies. The weight of history in their hands would stay with him for the rest of his life. The tiger rested in a sprawling hangar at the forward supply depot near the Rhine, its massive steel hull gleaming under the harsh glare of electric lights. Mack ran his hands over the cold armor plates, still feeling the faint vibration from yesterday's long trek through the olive grove. Even here, in a safe zone behind American lines, the tank radiated power, a silent, perfect predator, immobilized by its captors. Boucher stood nearby, examining the hatch and turret mechanisms with the meticulous care of a man defusing a bomb. "Every bolt, every rivet, every rivulet of armor tells a story," he muttered. "This isn't just a tank, it's a masterclass in German engineering and fear." Harris leaned against the hull, arms crossed. "Masterclass. I call it a pain in the neck. One wrong move, and we could have ended up inside a steel coffin." Ruiz chuckled, wiping grime from his hands. "Yeah, well, at least we didn't die trying. That counts for something, right?" Boucher gave a dry smile. "It counts for more than something. Capturing this beast intact is worth more than 100 tanks destroyed in the field. Intelligence will dissect it, reverse engineer it, and use its lessons to save thousands of American lives." Mack nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. They hadn't just survived, they had altered the course of armoured warfare. Every component, every design flaw, every innovative feature would now inform American tank production and tactics for the remainder of the war. The next morning, engineers and ordnance officers arrived in force, a small army of technicians ready to dismantle and catalogue every inch of the Tiger. Mack, Boucher, Ruiz, and Harris were assigned to assist, both to operate the tank safely and to offer insight from the field. The first task was stabilizing the turret. The previous battle had damaged the traverse mechanism, making even slight movements unpredictable. Mack climbed inside, brushing away debris. "I still can't believe this thing weighs as much as it does," he muttered, straining to move the turret manually. Boucher examined the hydraulic system, carefully noting how it differed from any American heavy tank. "Notice the power ratio here," he said, pointing to a valve assembly. "It's over-engineered. Germans believed more was better, even if it made maintenance a nightmare. Compare this to the Pershing or Sherman, its elegance versus brute force." Harris leaned in, eyebrows furrowed. "So all that armour and firepower comes at the cost of reliability." "Exactly," Boucher replied. "And that's something we can exploit. German tanks are deadly in theory. In practice, they're fragile if the crew can't maintain them under fire. Must weigh half a ton each. Makes you appreciate how easy we have it with Shermans and Pershings. Until they cross the plains at 40 kilometers an hour, Mack said with a grim smile. Then we appreciate their engineering too much. Over the next week, the Americans dismantled critical components of the Tiger, documenting every detail with photographs, schematics, and notes. Engineers marveled at the German approach, complex, meticulous, and highly effective when operating under ideal conditions. But as Boucher had noted, the Tiger demanded constant attention, a crew with skill beyond the ordinary, and a maintenance regiment that few units could sustain in the field. Mack found himself spending hours inside the Tiger's turret, studying the optics and gun sights. He could feel how the Germans had designed it to intimidate as much as to kill. Looking through the periscope, he realized why Panther and Tiger crews had felt invincible in 1942 and 1943. From inside, it wasn't just armour and guns, they were elevated, physically and psychologically, above the enemy. Harris noticed Mack's absorption and nudged him. "Hey, don't fall in love with it. Remember, we're Americans. We're supposed to take their best ideas and improve on them." Boucher nodded approvingly. "Every innovation here will inform our own designs. Turret stabilization, armour composition, ammunition, storage, all of it. Will make our tanks faster, more reliable, and easier to maintain." Ruiz, however, remained the most pragmatic of the group. "All that's great, but don't forget we're still in the middle of a war. None of these lessons matter if the Germans get word of this Tiger being captured. Then every unit knows the Americans can handle their invincible tanks." That afternoon, a briefing was called. Mack, Boucher, Ruiz, and Harris attended alongside intelligence officers, engineers, and high-ranking commanders. Maps were laid out, photographs projected, and reports read aloud. The Germans' confidence in their heavy tanks, particularly the Tiger, was a recurring theme. Officers noted the psychological advantage the Tigers had provided throughout the war. Crews moved with certainty. Infantry feared to advance without armoured support, and enemy tankers often misjudged distances and engagement strategies. One officer, Colonel James Whitaker, summarized the findings. "Capturing this Tiger isn't just about hardware, it's about knowledge. We now understand how the Germans viewed their own tanks, how they fought, and crucially, how they feared American innovation. That fear will be a weapon as much as our guns. That's exactly what the Germans felt facing Pershings or Shermans that had been modified to exploit Tiger weaknesses. We can weaponize that same fear in future operations. Mack nodded, realizing the gravity of what they had accomplished. So this isn't just about fighting Germans, it's about understanding them, predicting them, and using their own psychology against them. Harris grinned. Finally, a reason to say all that studying in Fort Knox paid off. Ruiz shook his head. We'll see if the soldiers in the field appreciate the theory when they're dodging 4.28mm shells. Meanwhile, reconnaissance reports trickled in. German units were reorganizing after the destruction in the olive grove, but morale was reportedly low. Tiger crews, once confident in their invincibility, were hesitating to engage American armor. Reports indicated that even experienced panzer aces were pausing, checking every approaching tank, uncertain if it was a Sherman, a Pershing, or another captured Tiger in American hands. Bucher noted the significance. This is exactly what we wanted. Fear amplified by intelligence. A single tank, albeit the mightiest the Germans produced, now works in our favor by breaking their certainty. Mack and Harris exchanged glances. So the Tiger fights again. Just not the way it did before, Mack said quietly. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.